Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get pre-orders of all the upcoming Force of Will sets, as well as releases of previous sets after they come out. ccgprime.com with over 100,000 Force of Will singles, as well as out-of-print boxes from the past, and TCG accessories, as well as fowlibrary.com, a wonderful resource for deck lists, article discussions, and more. Check them out at fowlibrary.com, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer member Vite Ramen. Thank you for your support. Class is in session.
He's got it.
Hey there, rulers. Welcome back after a long 2 weeks of Force of Will, because we weren't here last week, to the Office Hours, your favorite ever live Force of Will vodcast, featuring myself, DMO73, and I am joined, as always, by Paul Reisman.
Your official Draco Sack.
And Mike Rance.
And featuring Dante for the Devil May Cry series, and Knuckles.
And Knuckles. Very important.
And Knuckles.
And very important. Guys, we are here. I do just want to say, as we get started, if you like what we do, you want to consider supporting the channel. You saw those people in the intro who are our members. You can consider clicking that join button down below and starting your tutelage here at Ruler School by joining the channel as a member. It goes to help us support getting to events, upgrading equipment, everything else. We really appreciate it. But regardless, we're glad you're here because, guys, it's spoiler week. It's the first week of spoilers.
Hey.
New set.
Yes.
New set.
Spoilers are here.
The set is less than a month away. We're still waiting on pre-order links to go up, but should be soon. So just be sure as you're getting interested here. And we are going to go ahead and jump in. We got a lot of cards to cover today. We are going to be giving away a playset of Exorcist Mage promos, courtesy of ccgprime.com later today in the cast. So go ahead and check that out.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, but let's go ahead. We're going to start off with Alice Tales of Creation. We're not going to talk about the ruler side too much, other than the fact that it's Wednesday art and it's gorgeous. She cannot use, and it's blank. You can't use villains. She's a Tails ruler, can't use villains. And she is Force Command Genesis. So that's where her Force Command keyword is. And on the backside, she is Order of Genesis. On enter, choose an attribute. You don't control a regalia token with the chosen attribute. Put a regalia token with the chosen attribute into play, and then draw a card. And then your ordered card gains +X+X, where X is the number of regalia you control. So this is a maximum of +5/+5, and then has the ability of not being able to call stone and everything else like that. This is the first order ruler that cantrips. Can we talk about that for a second? Literally on top
Also,
of the... Yeah, go ahead.
The first one with I was just gonna oops, font machine broke. Understandable, have a nice day, with the Force Command Genesis on the flip side.
Oh, sure. I'm sure it'll look a little bit better in the final finished image. Final finished card. But yeah, we don't have the big massive text blocks of reminder text now because we're in set 2, so we can see a lot more of the artwork. But yeah, this card, even just by ordering, you technically go +2. I mean, that's gigantic, especially considering,
It's pretty good.
what potential support is, right? So like you're at net 0 by ordering the card, and then you generate a token, so that's +1, and then you cantrip, so that's +2. Like, every time you order, you go +2. Until you have all 5, right? But then at that point in time, you're like assembling Exodia, win the game. Obviously, we need to understand what the regalia are being used for, especially since they're just like blank additions. Technically, sorry, they're not additions, so that's a key important thing. Regalia is a specific card type, so something that destroys an addition would not pop these tokens, which is kind of huge, because there's not a lot of regalia removal right now. I mean, there's entity removal, right, which would hit them, but not like pure regalia removal. So they have a little bit more narrow safety net. But yeah, like just purely the fact that she cantrips on enter, I think already puts her as like a contender because of how frequently, like, we're ordering a lot. Like now that I'm saying like so much that I gotta stop that. Now that we are in New Frontiers and we are getting a good handle on how the order decks are playing, you order a lot. And so to naturally have a cantrip every time you order, that's a lot of value to generate over the course of the game. Thoughts, anybody?
Yeah,
You just about covered it.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm gonna go nuts about the Atlas
Well,
ruler.
Just splurge over Alice.
I'm personally very whelmed by this card.
Whelmed?
Not underwhelmed, not
Sure.
overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I'm whelmed.
Yeah.
The card seems like it does decent stuff, but I feel like I haven't seen enough payoff to really like think that it's going to be good enough. Especially like if like it depends. It also depends on what other things can create regalia.
Sure.
And the fact that like you're kind of capped at 5 in a sense, so it's like
yeah,
I don't know. It just feels like if there's more support to like turbo out the regalia, then it's just going to clash with her. And I feel like if there's not enough support, if she's the one who's going to be doing it, it's going to be too slow. So
sure.
like, there's this like weird middle ground area that she sits in the back of my mind. So
yeah, it's also
it's
also a big piece about how many regalia does she need to start rolling, right? Does she need
now in Wanderer though?
Does she need 2 to start rolling? Does she need can she start getting the ball rolling with just 1? Like it is gonna be. I mean, we'll see a little bit of that later, but I think as we get through the first rulers, I think Paul and I kind of shared a similar perspective, and Paul, you can correct me if I'm wrong. When we were first looking at the 4, it gave us this sense of, okay, this is going to be kind of what the mechanically this is how it's going to work, but like show us more before we can like get a sense of how good or bad it is. And they've started to do that because we have Marvel rares we'll get to later today. But yeah, I agree with your point, Mike, that the number of regalia or how quickly she can generate them outside of just ordering will play a big part in her competitive success.
If there are things that will like let you, tap a regalia token that you control in order to play it for free, stuff like that, I could see that being like a potential win con or a potential payoff that would make sense in both or even like sack the regalia token you control, like that would make sense with making new attributes and doing this. So it depends, because I feel like a lot of the regalia stuff that I've seen so far has been like if you control this many, and I feel like that's not as conducive to what Alice kind of wants to do. But I'm interested to see what other support comes out, because obviously we're going to be talking about Alice Enters the Game of Gods next.
Yeah,
which kind of goes over my first point.
Yep, that's our next card. Alice Enters the Game of Gods. 1 white, quick cast. Choose 1 or both if you are Alice. Choose an attribute if you don't of a regalia. Sorry, choose an attribute if you don't control the regalia token with the chosen attribute. You get it, and then cantrip. And then target J/Resonator loses all abilities until end of turn. So by itself, it's a generator that replaces itself. There have been some pretty pesky. We have seen in this format some pretty pesky abilities, like possessed by things, or like continuous abilities possessed by things. So having another tool to be able to deal with that is nice. And at that, I'm going to pass it to Paul to hear his thoughts on this.
Sure. So to go back to Alice, the fact that regalia are regalia, not additions, means that she's out of Kotaro range. Which is really nice. She doesn't just get blown out by Kage, which is really great. I'm kind of with Mike in that, like what are the regalia going to facilitate? And that's really going to be, she cantrips, which is great. So you're able to get like more cards, which is very blue of her. But I'm interested in what the black does, because it's like that's her secondary color. What it looks like.
What I'm hoping for,
yeah, it's definitely white. Never mind.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Paul.
Oh, yeah.
I actually was thinking outside. I like the fact that you mentioned the darkness aspect of her attributes, just because we've seen a lot of blue-white kind of flavored ideas stemming from her so far, right? We've seen like this Separation of Fate style card that cantrips and makes stuff with her. I've seen the draw card that comes from blue. I want to see what the darkness does, because I feel like it's going to be something like, banish a regalia token you control, destroy all resonators of the Regalia token's attribute or something.
That
cool
would be
like
great.
that.
So that's interesting because I have to believe that there's going to be a Dark Alice somewhere here in this set, which is where a lot of the dark comes from. And I will say that Dark Alice, for her entire history of Force of Will, starting back at Girl in Twilight Wander or Twilight Garb, has been enter, declare a thing, wipe that thing, right? So that's
Exactly.
that would be very
Flavor.
much in theme for like banish a regalia, destroy all entities your opponent controls that share an attribute with that regalia. Like that's a avenue that we could see if Dark Alice comes out. It would be in theme. It would be very. Especially if Dark Alice is quick cast, then we're suddenly talking about like instant speed free board wipes coming for Alice, and then we're like, okay, Alice is putting in some work here, right?
Thank you for bringing up the darkness attribute, Paul. I didn't even like think of that when I was looking at the Alice ruler.
Yeah,
it's coming. There's gonna be some like splashing like 3 color cards for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It's probably blue, white, primary, black splash. Yeah,
I hope that there's a way to like turn the regalia into will by tapping them, because that'd be kind of gross.
Well,
we'll get there, Mike. We'll get there.
Notably, light regalia are going to be better, it appears at first. But the thing that's really good about this Alice enter though is that once we go into New Frontiers with dual cluster and cluster 9, white will still have a way, especially with like in Odin mirrors, you'll be able to like remove effects from Mistletoe or like from opposing stuff that's going to be doing crazy stuff like Volmol. It's quick cast, so you can like shut off an Isis. That's pretty nice.
Also, can shut off.
So this card's gonna appreciate a value.
Shut off a Loki, right? Before, like I said, proactive play to shut off a Loki for a turn. Although you can't. Sorry, you can't remove that ability. But like,
yeah, it's not a J ruler, but it's just a good tool to have. We're gonna lose Charlotte's light transformation magic in a year, so having this in here is really good.
Yep. So next up, we're gonna go to our first villain, which is Shiva. Shiva, the providence of nature. Finally making her way. Finally making her way off of a card that literally no one played back in DBV into the ruler spotlight. Which is I'm totally fine with that.
I'm about to make an edit of this card that's just like one of those really, really terrible shit posts that's just, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And
yeah.
It's just her artwork with all of this.
You're not wrong. So she is
Email the champ.
She's force resonance nature, force command nature. And then on their flip side, she's the Order of Nature. This ordered card gains J/resonators you control, gain +2/+2. She is the go wide. She is the go wide ruler, which at first glance feels awful. Because go wide in FOW has not been good for a long time.
Look at you, Final Battle.
Look at it. Even before Final Battle, go wide was not great. So it's interesting to see. There's a part of me, and we'll get to the Marvel Rare that was spoiled later today, that gives me a little bit more hope. But it makes me think that in FOW's history, there have been very few go wide centric decks. There have been decks that can go wide, right? But there haven't been a lot. And to me, having a ruler specifically trying to buff all your dudes regardless of typing or anything else like that makes me have hope that maybe we'll see support to make a go wide deck possible. And to its credit, the Shiva enters the game of gods that we're about to go over certainly helps with that. But I am of the 4, first glance at the ruler, Shiva's the one that I'm most apprehensive about, just because of FOW as a whole. Any other thoughts about her before I go into enters?
Honestly, I think
let's go into the enter. But
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think the only thing that's like kind of at least something to my own imagination in terms of this card is that we still have like really stupid strong green stuff that lets you go wide in a sense.
Melfi's.
Like you can literally just
Perseus.
Melfi, Game of Gods, Lycion, Prisia, make a board of Prisias, and then you flip over your Order of Nature and you just go ham and you swing your opponent's face and they die. Oops.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
killed you. My bad.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, ordering Prisia with this deck feels really good. Especially if you end up on Mimi Train.
I don't know what else it's going to do. I think the support is probably going to be too much in a one-dimensional go-wide kind of fact. But I think if you pair it with... I just think pairing it with stuff like Prisia, with stuff just like... things that just build boards at quick speed.
Yeah.
Disgusting with this card,
or allow you to use things like Enters the Game of Gods here to more of a tempo deck that goes a wider rather than like a one or two body tempo deck, which is like what we've traditionally seen.
I think the biggest
not a token generator. Please, not a token generator deck. Token generator decks are terrible in Forcible's history. And before you're like, but Feasting was an elf generator. You're like, Feasting was an elf generator because you wanted Gwybers. You don't care about the tokens.
I was going to say Feasting was a dragon generator. It wasn't a token generator. But I think the one thing I will say is that immediately looking at this card, I see one thing and I see one thing only. Melfi, Prisia, Lycion. Next turn, hit the Prisia, do the Prisia back to hand. Next turn, Melfi, Prisia. Order, that's 4, 9, 9, 9, and 9. That's exactly 4K. Let's go, boys.
Okay. So next up we have Sylvia. Shiva enters the Game of Gods. So once again, all of these Game of God enters are a little bit more streamlined than last sets for sure. There are 2 mode spells that you get to pick both, which I think is fine because honestly, some of the Enters the Game of Gods in the last set are pretty like, so this is choose one. J/Resonators you control gain +2/+2 and Eternaling to the end of turn. Second mode is this card deals damage equal to the combined total attack of everything you control to target J/Resonator. If the attack is 3,000 or more, draw 3 cards.
Cute.
What? For one.
I'm gonna play this with an Avenger Amadeus on the board, and I'm gonna draw 3 cards.
I just something like this is, I think, very good for what Chimimi is going to be trying to do because it gives her protection, but also pivot removal, and it also lets her, even if you're not drawing 3, like having a protection spell that's also a punish all in one is good when you're talking about a mid-range deck, right? So I think this card is starts getting me on the vibe of like Shiva maybe has some legs just by itself. Paul, you gave a choice look. What's your thoughts on this card?
Well, before I forget, I just want to say that Alice found her Genesis. Hashtag memes.
She found her Genesis.
But this card I think is so. I'm on Kaguya. I'm just gonna be real. Like Jeremy's on Loki. I'm on Kaguya. And I look at this card and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, this is a really good way to protect my Hanzo and protect my Feathsings and all this other stuff. I'm on a black Kaguya list, so I'm pumping up my board. And then I look at the second effect of this and I'm like, I'm pumping my board. Oh, this is going to be so easy to manage. And I'm going to be able to draw cards in color. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Kaguya
so
does.
This card is going to be really good for green decks.
Kaguya does kind of struggle with card draw.
Yeah, you're playing Absorbing Knowledge, which is okay, but this card is just, I think is situational, but maybe potentially better.
Yeah.
Just because like it's a mode, and you can just protect your board.
Yeah.
Shiva absolutely needs this too, because she's gonna try and go wide, and by wide I mean like maybe 2 or 3 resonators with pumps. I'm really interested in this because when I think of Chimimi, I think of right when we went from Rhea Cluster into New Valhalla, and she was meta for a hot second.
Yeah.
And she was able to like go wide in that sense.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 resonators.
Well, I mean, even back then she was like a tempo go wide deck, like we're saying. Like she got to like 3, she like played bodies that maintained card advantage while applying pressure, she got to like 4 resonators and then swarmed, right? So like Chimimi has probably been the ruler that's had the most success with that style of approach to a game plan. So Shiva being tied to Chimimi and like right out the gate kind of having that buff to sit back on and some spells like this again gives me some credence to that game plan coming back, which is great. Wide enough, yeah. Clefadunk, that's a good point. Wide enough. So let's talk about Deus Ex. Deus Ex, the god from the future dimension. The first card. So I would say this is the first card of these spoilers that have broken our expectations and understanding of what patterning we were going to see. Everyone thought this card was going to be green, blue, red. This card is green, blue, white. The second one for this cluster. So it's a Tails, and it has Force Command Future. And then on its Order of the Future, you may look at the top card of your deck at any time, and the ordered card gains Machine.
That's the second SpongeBob meme of the cast. That's great.
I need to see more things that want to be machines, right? I need to see it. It makes a lot of sense. Like this card obviously works really well with the Guinevere, right? We're right off the bat. This card works really well with the Guinevere. An early, even a turn 2 ordered Guinevere to be so like Guinevere's gonna come down and say, you definitely don't have 4 will. My enter effect's gonna resolve, right? Like what darkness? Mike's been put into darkness. Like there's some natural already things that you can see, and like with Guinevere and this, you're always going to be able to know what that top card is, so you'll be able to call the card right with Guinevere and stuff like that. There needs to be, I need to see more. I'm interested, don't get me wrong, I'm very interested because this feels very blue, this feels very fun. It's very different than anything else, and also, you know, shout out to all those Shion players coming, you know, back into the game or still here. Woo! So like,
remember Shion? I'm not feel old yet.
This is actually just Shion. She just put on a metal hat.
Team Memoria favorite.
Yeah. So I like it. I need to see more Transformer machines to really get a vibe for this. Babatunde's here for it. Of course, Babatunde's here.
Heck yeah! Hey, buddy.
Mike.
I like how in the ordered side of him, the eyes just get like slightly angrier looking. I'm just like going back and forth with it, and you just get like a little like, there's like, and then I think this card's really bad. Just looking at it immediately.
Yeah.
Obviously we have to wait and see the support, but God, it's just like 2 sides of just no text. It's just
potentially
blank.
He's very dependent. He's very dependent on what you're ordering, which is, you know, he's not generating natural value just by himself. Chimimi's at least giving a board pump, so like the order itself is providing some value just by existing. Machina's order is entirely dependent on what you're ordering, because looking at the top card of your deck isn't actually that big of a buff. As much as, because if you don't have a way to interact with the top of your deck, why? Like that, okay, great. I can see that this card is worthless. I can't do anything about it.
It adds another type to your Light Palace count.
Yeah, for sure. But let's talk about Deus Ex Enters the Game of Gods, because this card is really good, I think. So 1 blue, search your deck for a machine and add it to your hands, then shuffle your deck. And then the other mode is reveal a machine resonator from your hand. If you do, destroy target J/resonator if its total cost is less than or equal to the total cost of the revealed card. Keep in mind, you always resolve, if you're Machina, you do both, and you always resolve effects from top-bottom. So, Deus Ex Enters the Game of Gods kills anything. Will always kill what you want it to kill.
Won't kill my Avenger of Asmodeus. Amadeus.
Joke's on you. I have a 10-drop machine. I'm playing remote control golem.
No, you're not. Shut up.
Joke's on you. So, that being said.
Joke's on you. It rotated.
We're playing Wanderer, bro. You and I both know we're playing Wanderer. But
we're gonna break shit in Wanderer, man. Look at
yeah,
this
let's go. But yeah, I think this card is very, very good. Just being able to get like never have to worry about making sure that the cost is you can't kill the thing, and then also getting a search off of it is huge. This is always at least a +1 whenever you do it. It can hit J rulers, which is huge. It keeps your consistency up, which is huge. Like this card is very good.
I like the fact that Deus Ex Machina enters the Game of Gods explains why he's the same colors as Kaguya too.
Explain.
It says when Kaguya asked why he had joined her faction, he just stared at her in silence.
Oh, sure. He's just like
The 3 colors are just factions.
he's just like, hey, what's up?
Okay.
There's a very simple explanation for all of this.
Hello, my name is Machina. I'm here to explain what's going on.
Excellent.
We
Yeah.
talked about Wanderer a little bit. I actually have an OG Machina Machine Rush combo thing that I'm going to be putting on the channel soon. That I've been building for months, right? Just because I'm like, but like the fact that this searches out Motoko, or this like searches out like a remote control golem, and you just flip and just throw this thing to the field and Wanderer feels super fun. Man, like this is just a really good piece of legacy support for machines in general.
Wanderer time, boys.
Yeah, I mean, even just as a good like spot removal in like OG1, like your hand's probably going to be full of machines anyway. So then this card is just spot removal, right? Like it's even
Heard you wanted consistency and removal.
That's one of the things. That's one of the things that I do really like about this suite of, and we'll get to that especially when we see Dante's. But like this suite of that enters the Game of God spells is they all certainly have splashability outside of their ruler, right?
Oh yeah.
Kaguya enters the Game of Gods, trash outside of Kaguya. Odin enters the Game of Gods, trash outside of Odin. Loki enters the Game of Gods, trash outside of Loki. You can say like, Loki enters the Game of Gods is not trash. You take that back. That card is straight fire in Loki. Listen here, you haven't played a game of Force of Will in 2.5 months because you haven't gotten product yet. You don't get to talk to me about how good a card is.
Oh man!
In current New Frontiers, I will die on this hill.
That's fair. Current Frontiers, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Who's this message from? Sweet, awesome. I do just. I'm gonna go to do this right now. I'm gonna put it in the chat. Odyssey Games just put up, literally just now, put up their pre-orders for Game of Gods. So I'm gonna put it in the chat right now. So you're getting hyped. We're getting hyped. We're talking about it. Let's do Game of Gods Reloaded pre-orders, boxes, and pre-release kits. Boom, bada boom, bada boom. There it is. Get those pre-orders in. Let's do it. I'm gonna go pre-order my pre-release kit literally right after we're done with this podcast. So yeah, all of these Game of Gods enters the Game of God spells are infinitely more splashable. Yeah, Charlie's like straight fire outside of Loki. Good, maybe. Thank you, Charlie. But yeah, I think these cards are. It's cool to me to see these cards have more utility outside of just their intended rulers. I think that's a fun space, and it just makes deck building even more fun when you don't just have to be like, slap the 40 cards that have my ruler's name on it into a deck. I can get some flexibility there. So, speaking of Dante from Devil May Cry, Dante,
and
the seven
Knuckles.
and Knuckles, sorry,
And Knuckles.
Dante, the 7 deadly sins. Is villains. Make sure. Okay, perfect. He has Force Command Satan, aka Force Command Stan. Good to be like we're back to Stan. And he's captured all the he's collected all the 7 Dragon Ball or the 5 Dragon Balls. He's 5 of the 7 Dragon Balls. He's a Pokemon trainer, whatever you want to call him. He's got orbs. But when he flips over,
got balls.
but when he flips, you can reveal, and this is different. You can reveal a dark sphere card you own from outside the game from your sideboard that you don't already control and put it into the field. And then that's all he does. He just gets you the orb. But the thing to note is the difference between him and the Regalia is the orbs are actual cards, or the spheres are actual cards. So they will probably have.
Orbs, we're gonna ponder them.
Okay, sure, we'll do orbs. So we'll ponder those orbs. So they will probably do the orbs themselves. Will probably do something outside of unlike the Regalia, which are not going to do anything. They're just going to be blank cards. So that's huge. Like the flexibility of like what sphere do I need right now? Like what sphere do I need early? What sphere is maybe better for the matchup early? That kind of thing. On top of probably having more things of based on the number of spheres you control, because that's obviously a thing. Even before we get any further, has me really intrigued. Really intrigued for Dante. Good old gluttony. Probably the sphere. I'm calling it. Probably it'll be like gluttony, pride, envy. Like there'll probably be the 7 deadly sins for the orbs. Any other thoughts on him before we go to the most insane of the enters the game of God spells?
No, I'm just gonna sit here for like a second and ponder him.
Okay, gonna ponder.
The closest thing I can see this comparable is Wolfgang 2, right? Where you're like actively doing things to help you build a board state. It's like the playstyles are the same but different in the sense that you get your stuff from you remove from game as opposed to stuff that's in your deck. I think that's interesting, but I just want to know what they do.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
So we won't know how good he is. He technically cantrips because he gets you a card for free.
And I have a feeling the blue orb might draw you a card.
Probably the orb will draw you a card.
Produce a will of any attribute. Make your opponent discard a card. Produce a token with 4/4.
It's a Carlino one. It produces 2. Let's go.
Because of course, Bitey Lady
deal
come
800
back.
points of damage to your opponent's Resonator. J/Resonator. Seems.
Shout outs to all the
spam.
spam bots in the chat.
Hey, shout out spam.
They're all from Russia.
So we have next up we have Dante enters the game of gods. Target 1 black quick cast. Target J/Resonator gives +4/+4 flying, pierce, drain, and bait until end of turn. Or you can pay 500, 1,000, or 1,500 life. Draw a card for each 500 life paid this way. Back to the old black mechanic of paying life to draw cards. This card is busted. Like
that's nutty.
It's just
Absolutely.
it's like enters the game of gods, enters the game of gods, enters the game of gods, Dante's. Like it's not even close. Like these are probably the 4 best keywords in the entirety of Force of Will's existence. Like Pierce is so, let's get this straight. Pierce is so good that there was an entire 2.5-year stretch of time that it wasn't printed on cards. Like like it's a good keyword.
Drainbane.
And Drainbane is huge. Like this also just means that Virgil's just like, hey, I don't need to resolve God Starts anymore, and I can just pew pew the board, pew pew pew. This card is probably, just for that first mode alone, probably a 4 of in every darkness deck. Like auto include 4 of in every darkness deck. That is so strong, and the flexibility of the fact that it's a pump up or a draw, even if it's your own life, like that's totally fine. And then you think about that black and white is typically paired together, so then you get Lumia, right? So you're like, I pay 15 and then I flash in Lumia and I'm gonna gain it back, right?
And draw cards and draw cards
and draw more cards and draw more cards. Like these are this is a very, very good card. It's also beautiful full art, like hands down the best of the enters for this, and is going to see competitive play in and outside of Dante. Like you will see this card.
Got an infinite life combo with this deck.
Cleffadonk's like, seems meh. Well, this is just, is it just the hunting angel combo? Like,
Oh, it's Exorcist of Cerdo. Pay
Yeah.
400 life. This card deals 200 damage to each J Resonator.
so you just deal it
It
to
doesn't
its...
actually go infinite to pay life, but whatever.
But also it has Bane, so it hits your own thing. So then they'll die. So then you
But
can't pay it again.
But you just keep stacking them. It's no big deal. It's whatever. It's fine.
Oh, you just like
give him
choose
a
how.
turtle
Just
with the Chimimi spell.
that's true.
We solved it.
I don't think this is $100 card, Clefadog, by any means, but I do think that it is going to be one of the better, especially since it's not a promo. This is going to be one of the higher valued supers, especially at the full art level. It's just a good card. So that
It'll
takes
go
us
for
to
what
the
you
end.
expect the super to go for.
That takes us to the end of technically week 1. Now we get to go into the Marvel rares. So back to the top of the order. With Alice, we have, unexpectedly, I did not expect this character to be the Marvel. We have Ayu, Multi-Dimensional Wanderer. So Mike has not seen this card yet, so we get to get his thing live.
Hot takes.
Hot takes. So 1-drop 4/4. This card gains swiftness and flying as long as you control 2 or more regalia. Pay 1 white to draw a card, only once per turn. Pay 2 white to give her +10/+10 until end of turn. But if you control 5 or more different regalia, or 5 or more regalia, it becomes +40/+40. So good old Exodia. And then if you revolution her on enter, produce 2 white, and light regalia you control gain tap, produce 1 of any color. Mike.
I see payoff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I see nutty combos.
This card, I like this card a lot. It feels I've had this conversation about my problem with Kaguya Hanzo decks is that, at least with the way people have been traditionally playing them, you have to kill your own Hanzo to find your way to lethal. Like, it's always like, use Hanzo to set up, find a way to kill my own Hanzo, reorder into something else, right? At least in the traditional builds that we've been seeing. Ayu says, I'm going to help you with the setup, and I'm also going to be the end game later. And I think that's really nice. I don't think she's necessarily as nutty as Hanzo in terms of like the sheer amount of value she generates just by herself. But also, I mean, even just by herself, if she's ordered, she becomes draw 2, right? Because you'll draw 1 off of Alice, and you'll get a light regalia, and then you can pay 1 of those white that she generates to draw a card from Ayu, right? And then you can just kind of sit on it.
Also once per turn, not once per turn during your turn.
Yeah, so you can do it during your opponent's.
turn too.
Yep. So definitely getting into a white draw power engine, which I think is great.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I would play this in Carlina, but that's just me because I'm a Carlina simp. But that's fine.
Maybe. I have a hard time playing. It's strange, but I have a hard time playing 1-drops in Carlina.
That's fair. That's a very valid point.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that. That's half of a Carlina. I need to use all of Carlina. Thank you very much. No, I like this card a lot. I think it's cool design. I think it's good support for what clearly, the idea of Alice is going for. I think that it's nice that it can be a way to close out the game, but like it's still gonna take you a bit. Like, this feels like the quote unquote Exodia at the end of getting all your 5 regalia ready. She's a were-rabbit.
Yeah.
She's a were-rabbit.
She's
Are you talking
rabbit
about the bunny?
Or a Y-rabbit, but a were-rabbit.
A were-rabbit. Paul, any other thoughts on Ayu before I jump into our next one?
I think when I first saw this, Jeremy, when I texted you, I said this is like if you took a mini Bahamut and a mini Hanzo and went.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what you get, which is like, this is a threat. I mean, this is definitely one way to get to lethal with Alice, and it puts a lot of value into light regalia because all of a sudden you have extra will to do crazy things with. How many ways are we gonna have to get light regalia when you already have
and
one?
can only control 1?
But...
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean that's what it
Speaking
appears to
Jeremy,
be. There's yeah.
you can't. You don't actually only control one if you sequence things properly. So all you have to do
Oh, sure. If you like declare
chase that, use that.
light, well, you declare it resolution, so I don't think that actually works.
Do you?
Well, I mean, there's nothing suggesting that you could only have one light regalia. What
Just choose an
the
attribute of
text
the
says
regalia.
right now, the text that we've seen has said, for whatever attribute you don't control, gain
Right.
that regalia.
Right.
That doesn't mean we can't have like a light regalia generator card later on.
But I think
Um,
I think with the 2 cards we have right now, because of I think you choose at resolution, so there's no way to like have them both choose white. So with their current wording. So yeah, for sure. To the points about mini Bahamut plus mini Hanzo, I think that there's some natural, you kind of get some natural benefit in the fact that it's also a draw engine, which I think is great. It also feels a lot more like, I don't want to say fairer Bahamut, but like a more predictable Bahamut in the sense of like like there are more pieces. It's not just a Bahamut by itself, right? Like you have to like
Here I go. Here's my 40-40.
right, exactly. Like there's more pieces to it, which I like. It feels like we're assembling a puzzle, and then the puzzle will be completed, and you'll take 40 in the air, and I'm okay with that.
I mean, even respectably, it's a 14/14 with flying and swiftness if you have 2 or more regalia, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, all things considered.
And then we have
For a 1-drop, that's insane.
I use Little Friend. 1 cost 4/4. Enter, draw a card. Well, nice little cantrip. Pay
Cool.
1, tap, choose an attribute. Target regalia becomes the chosen attribute until end of turn. So, you don't necessarily, you've got a fire regalia and a light regalia. I'm going to make this fire regalia a light regalia for the turn so that I can use it to ramp. Do I think this card sees competitive play for Alice? No. Do I think this card sees casual, enjoyable play for Alice? Yes.
Like the the boardroom meeting went for the artwork of the set. Hey guys, see this artwork that was done by Miso Susui? Let's just
Yeah.
new card.
At least he's cute, right? At least he's cute.
He's very cute.
It's better than red wine and bread.
Yeah, red wine bread felt just like the JPEG flowers.
Yeah, felt very much like that. Although it's significantly more meta relevant than JPEG flowers. They
It
can't.
says you. I played a lot of sealed. I didn't play any sealed.
Yeah, stop. Yeah, I think this card's fine. I mean, it's a natural like 1/2 follow up off of a.
Does the job.
It's a nice little 1/2 follow up off of an ordered IU, right? Because you like produce 1, draw 1, use the other floating white to play this dude, draw another 1, right? So it's a nice, they go together potentially, and you are drawing a bunch of cards, so the likelihood that you would have both is pretty high. So it's a nice little support card for the IU kind of concept. Based on what other ways we have to generate regalia or what other regalia do, this card will be more or less important for the deck at a competitive level.
I really like the only comment on this card on Facebook. I'm looking at the Facebook version of it.
Sure.
And the only comment is, "This is cheap." That's the only redeeming quality of this card. It costs 1 light mana.
It's cheap. Speaking of new characters, let's go to blue, because we jumped, instead of doing back and forth, we went to Machina second. We have Titor, the emissary from the future. 2 blue, 1 colorless, 9/9 tails human. At the beginning of your turn, trigger, draw a card. Revolution, if you would lose the game for attempting to draw a card from an empty deck during your draw phase, you win the game instead. Hello, Laboratory Maniac. And then on enter, you may pay 2 blue. If you do, take an extra turn after this one. If this card is a machine, you may pay 1 blue instead. So it is a fair time walk for 4 blue will at non-instant speed. Listen here, we had instant speed, technically 2 cost time walks. This is significantly fairer than that. This is a four cost non-quick cast time walk. So I think this very clearly sets us up to the whole idea behind Machina is very set up to be the mill deck, which I will say I'm excited about because literally from the beginning of FOW's history in the United States, we have not had a mill deck, but we've known about a mill deck that existed in Valhalla with Kronos. So now we actually get to explore that space in New Frontiers, in competitive. We need to see how fast the deck can get through itself, but I'm hyped for bringing this kind of deck into the meta.
I'm glad this guy is mad scientist. It is so cool, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I'm glad he completed the Millennium Puzzle in the future.
Yeah.
And spliced it with cyborg tech.
Tech.
The future. I also really love how like Machina is not only just like a mill deck, but he's like, I'm gonna freaking time travel now. Because I'm a time machine. I'm the time machine.
We're time friends.
I'm the time.
We're time. The time break. Anyway,
The time break.
Time break.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. I like the idea of Machina a lot. I also really like the idea that it's very clearly set up. We'll see, especially with Titor's gimmick in a second, that we're probably going to see this idea of like during your turn taxing on your opponent. So you don't necessarily have quote unquote protection, but you have this kind of like economy tax on your opponent. So the idea of like you slam a Titor when you're ready to try to go for lethal, you've already got a board of taxing, so your opponent has to pay an extra X amount when they're playing on their turn, your turn, and then you're like, cool, you have to pay 5 to play any cards during my turn. Here's a Titor. Next turn is going to be my turn immediately again. You're still going to be under pay 5. I'm going to try to draw. By the way, I win. Right? So, like, we need to see more clearly. I think that's, the biggest thing that we can say at the end of this, outside of a couple of cards. The biggest thing about the first week of spoilers is we still need to see more. We're really just getting a general sense of what they're trying to do, and we need to see this full support suites. But this
Jeremy,
has me excited.
When you cosplay Titor, Jeremy,
yeah,
are you going to have a legitimate floating pyramid of blue energy? Because if I see any wires, I'm going to unsubscribe from this channel.
Yeah, I'll give myself a shot, I guess. I'll try.
Nice.
I'll try for it.
Why isn't this not Time Will? Why not Time Will?
Please no.
Angry.
Please
unsubscribe.
No. Please no time. Will.
Go back to
the last thing I'll say about Titor is if he were only a 2 cost, I would feel much better about him.
Sure.
That being said, he's still one of my favorite cards in the set that's been revealed so far.
Sure.
But I just wish he was a little less, because 3 feels bad.
Well, so that's the thing, is like Titor early feels terrible, right? Just naturally.
Yeah.
So like the fact that he's a 3 cost, I'm not super concerned with, because he's really not going to get value until you get towards the end of the game when your deck is super low, or in case you really need to take an extra turn right now to be able to set up. So to me, the fact that he costs 3, I almost kind of appreciate, because it makes the time walks a little bit less accessible, because there is a pretty common theme in the Forcible community of early accessible time walks being insanely annoying. And so having it locked to a little bit higher cost, having it locked to making it feel really better later, makes me a lot more comfortable with this. But I can see I can see where you're coming from for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if all of your tax cards, like your Guinevere's and your next card that we're going to talk about, get blown up, this just doesn't feel super comfortable to play.
Sure.
So I think that's the way you go in to beat this deck. Like, we're kind of seeing like the edges of like what this deck can do already. So if you get rid of the taxes, you'll be able to stop this.
Balanced. I mean, really, it's a blue card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blue, best card, best color.
Let's talk about Titor's gimmick. So 1 cost machine edition. Tap, put the top 2 cards of your deck into the graveyard. For each machine resonator put into your graveyard this way, put a 2/2 water machine resonator token into the field. And if you're playing as Machina, your opponent pays 1 more to play spells during your turn. Specifically spells, where Guinevere says spells and abilities. So that's kind of the thing. I do want to go back to Titor just real quick. 1 second. make sure I read him properly. The winning the game is tied to his revolution ability. Just wanted to make sure. That's an important distinction because we'll have to see. Guinevere says spells or activate abilities. Cheetor's gimmick just says spells, so we'll have to see if there are other cards in the set that will also impact activate abilities. That'll be the thing to kind of keep in mind, because you can't have an ordered Gwyn and an ordered Cheetor. Just so you know, can't have two things ordered at the same time.
I really wish Cheetor's ability to make you win the game when you draw your last deck not part of his revolution.
Yeah,
because I feel like that'd be sick. So many other decks, man.
Yeah, that's it's gonna be. I like it, but also at the same time, I wish I'm in the same boat. Like, I wish it was not, but I'm glad that it is.
I'm not.
Well, you know what? That's fine.
It's never gonna happen. I just want the potential for it to happen.
Good
next,
blue deck now.
we have 3 more cards left to go, so we're going into today's spoilers, which is Chimimi, not the character I expected to be the Marvel Rare. Once again, the second card of the entire set that completely breaks the patterning that we were expecting. The champions from New Valhalla being the super rares. Chimimi's like, nah, Marvel. Okay, Chimimi. So, Chimimi, the Divine Power, 2 green, 7/7, Mimi Tribe, villain with Pierce. When a Mimi Tribe enters the field under your control, keep in mind that doesn't say Mimi Tribe Resonator. It just says Mimi Tribe, although probably makes sense because you need to have attack stats for this next piece. Just saying.
No, the Mimi Tribe edition is going to do a great
Hey, man, what if it has a thing that says count this card's attack as 1,700 for the sake... whatever.
This card's attack is 3,000, except it can't do battle.
Yeah, exactly.
Mimi Tribe Edition with 1,700 attack.
Yeah, for sure. Why not? This card deals so when a Mimi Tribe enters the field under your control, this card, being Chimimi, deals damage to target J/Resonator equal to the attack of the Mimi Tribe, and then if damage would be done beyond that resonate target's capacity, it's dealt to your opponent. So it has Pierce on an arrow effect anytime one of your guys comes into play. So this is step 1, and that's on its resonator side. That's a key important piece here, is that it's on its resonator side. So it's this natural, like, good 2-drop stat line body that sets up for the tempo pressure that we've talked about earlier in the night, right? Every single time, like, I'm getting a body and removal. I'm getting a body and chip damage. Like, that's the thing. And then on Revolution, she gains Precision, which is an interesting choice to gain on Revolution. But then on Enter, you can reveal X number of Mimi Tribes with no abilities, with total cost X or less you control from outside the game, and put them into the field, where X is the total number of Resonators you control. Not J-Resonators, just Resonators. So she doesn't count herself for that second part. So essentially a way to, like, double your board off of an Enter. I like that a lot. Like, we were talking about, how was she going to establish a board? Here you go.
She is the board.
She is the board. Especially since then, if you're grabbing Mimi Tribes, she will then start shooting stuff, right? Because they're Mimi Tribes entering, and so she'll trigger a bunch of stuff. I like this card a lot for what Shiva is trying to set up to do. Like, it makes me think that the strategy is going to have some merit to it. Paul?
I would say, even though this card is a 2 cost, based on just the enter effect alone, this is going to be something you're going to be ordering maybe like turn 4 or 5. It's going to be a closer.
Yeah, potentially. I could see
yeah.
I could see you playing one and then ordering another later.
Yeah, like you could play this early and it'll do things as you like progressively make a board. But I think this is like your, okay, I'm flipping to play this, gonna flood the field, we're just gonna swing in next turn. So answer the board or not. That's kind of how this feels. The fact that it just clearly has board clear energy around it with like precision and pierce and like the shooting ability especially. Yeah.
I think current wording, I believe, will, and Charlie can correct me if I'm wrong as we lose Mike Rants and my face gets cut in half on the stream, is that she will see herself for a Mimi Tribe entering the field under your control. I think. Might be wrong there. The wording is strange.
Yeah,
she
it
might
doesn't say another Mimi tribe.
right. So if she sees herself entering, she's much better, right? Because then she's a tempo play even by herself, right? Gets to tempo to removal. If she's purely dependent on other stuff, then I think she's still good, but I think she does get relegated to more like the closer space, like you were saying, for sure. And then
if she sees herself, I could say she's probably easily the best Marvel we've seen so far.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. Charlie's in the chat and can correct us if we're wrong. I'm pretty sure. So then we had one more card that was spoiled that came from. I think it was potentially accidentally spoiled from Italy. But it's the giant bird of Ma'at. Pardon the translation here. It is 1 green, 1 colorless beast, 6/7 with flying. And you can pay 1 green and discard this card to give a J/Resonator you control flying until end of turn, and also draw a card. But then if you target a Mimi tribe with it, you draw 2 cards instead. Has applications for the inheritance style effect outside of Chimimi. Has a lot of impact in Chimimi. Just the fact that it draws 2 is like really, really good.
I'm gonna play it and wander with Eagle Me. Let's go, boys.
Oh yeah, Babatunde does bring up an interesting point here with Chimimi, is that it's not a may, it's a mandatory, and it does say
ooh.
So and it doesn't specifically say your opponent controls. So Chimimi might shoot your own stuff.
Start blasting.
But that, but I would say the extra capacity damage is still dealt to your opponent, even if you shoot your own stuff.
Yo, I'm gonna make 1/1 Chimimis and kill my opponent. My own shit.
You can.
Let's go.
You can do that. You can do that. Just saying, that's a thing that you can do. But yeah, that's the end of. I mean, the bird is. I think the bird kind of speaks for itself. I mean, inheritance effects, any kind of way to get around cancels is good. It naturally cantrips. Giving stuff flying is always good. Could see itself probably maybe more of a tech card, like a tech sideboard or a tech 2 of outside of Chimimi, but certainly see this as an easy 3 of most likely in Chimimi decks.
Yeah. It's a bird.
Paul's having a thought.
And it draws.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm thinking is, do I play this in Kaguya or not? And I'm leaning toward no.
You have enough flying in that deck already.
Because, I mean, you naturally get flying. You may play it in Machina because his secondary color is green, but
that's
maybe
true.
Maybe not.
Yeah, that's true.
Definitely going to be using it in Mimi Tribe cores, but
yeah, for sure.
Outside of that, in Wanderer, maybe like OG Chimimi. That seems really good.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the first round of spoilers. First, like, closing thoughts after a week of cards. And I'll say this while you guys are answering that, if you are in the chat and you are in the United States and you want to be entered into the giveaway for the playset of Exorcist promos on behalf of CCG Prime, in the chat, please put which of the 4 rulers you are most excited about. And I will give you until 10:05. So,
there you go. Mike, you go first.
Mike, overall thoughts?
I'm gonna say I feel the same thing with Alice. I feel very whelmed by the rulers at this point. I don't see any major upsides that makes me want to go, yeah, this is the deck I'm playing right now, except for maybe Dante. We don't know what the Dark Spheres do. His entrance to the Game of Gods is crazy strong. But so far, everything else just really feels very much like encased within its own thing. I would say, like, for example, Tidor, I feel like he's not going to see any play. That's the end of that thought. But also, I feel like he's not going to see any play outside of like a really dedicated Machina deck for him. And I just like, I don't know. Is that enough to make me want to play Machina when I feel like he'd be better if he was just, more attainable to other decks that want to do a similar strategy? At this point, I don't know. But
Okay, it's fair.
I just feel like there's a lot of potential here, and I feel like maybe I'm just not realizing it yet. Maybe after this first set of spoilers, I shouldn't be realizing it. But I'm interested to see what happens next.
Paul.
First thing I'm going to say is because the assistance text is not on either side of these rulers, it looks like the rulers don't do anything at all. But if you look at your Nyarlathotep ruler and you just look past the assistant
It
text,
also
it's
doesn't do
literally
anything.
+2/+2 swiftness and force chaos. So these are going to do things for sure. The question then becomes, at least in my head, is as we get more and more of these order rulers that flip into these orders, like what exactly do we have to evaluate the flip side and like what it actually does for the game state. So like swiftness +2/+2 is insane. Mill a light card is really, really strong. Generate a moon and your stuff gets flying +X+X. I mean, those are all like really strong effects. And right now, the things that are equivalent for me in that are probably Dante. Depending on what the spheres actually do, I'm guessing Dante and probably Shiva. Being able to peek at the top of your deck is not super great, unfortunately, even though I love Machina. He is my favorite ruler and he is my first deck. For sure. Alice as a flip, get a card seems interesting. But again, I want to know what she does with that stuff. And I say she just inches just above Machina in terms of my interest in playability at this point.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm at this position where I'm excited, but not so excited that I'm abandoning everything else. Right? Like I'm excited to play them because they are going to feel new and unique and different. I don't have really, at least as of now, I don't have any like fear that suddenly anything else that's currently viable in New Frontiers is going to get power crept out or like whitewashed out, which is kind of nice. Like I would say that like Game of Gods already didn't do that, and so it's nice that Game of Gods Reloaded also isn't doing that. I think that people are like, oh, Nyarlathotep, like, okay. Like, after 2.5 weeks, we already learned how to stop that deck. It's incredibly fragile, right? So, and the decks that were already competitively good were able to do that, and new decks were able to do that well, right? So it's not quite as it doesn't feel like Game of Gods or Game of Gods Reloaded is sunsetting anything, which to me is nice, and I like that. It gets me excited for the new deck building ideas. It gets me excited for like cards in hand. There's nothing that has me innately afraid. There's nothing that has me innately bored. Like I'm genuinely interested because it's for new concepts being introduced, but it's not like forget it. It's not forget everything you've ever known up to this point because it's just these 4 now. So
forget everything you know about slipcovers.
So yeah, like so overall, I mean, good. I think I still need to see a lot more, but this first round of spoilers has me intrigued enough and excited enough that I'm now anticipating the more. Right? It has me excited to see more, which I think is what a spoiler season needs to do, and I think is a good approach to the set. So excited. Yeah. Let's give away some promos.
Let's do it.
Clefadonk! You are our winner. Congratulations,
Yay.
Clefadonk. You're going to get a playset of Exorcist Mage promos, courtesy of ccgprime.com. I do want to say ccgprime.com also has a brand new thing that they are offering. If you are trying to start a Locals, if you are working with a store to try to start a Locals, they are doing a new Locals Revitalizer kit or starter kit, which is, I think Dan described it as 300 to 400 promos and 8 playmats. For I think $20. So designed to be here you go. Here's a good way to kind of good palette of stuff to give away to new people. So check them out, ccgprime.com. They also on the Forcible Global Facebook page posted a link to it as well. So if you're trying to get a new place started, looking for a little bit of something to spice up your locals and kind of get them, kind of driven as you're waiting to get new promos from YY or the new distributors, check that out. And huge thanks to them for making something like that. And then, so Clefadunk, if you would please email your address and name to rulerschoolcontent.com, rulerschoolcontent@gmail.com, so that we can get that address over to CCG Prime and then get that over to you then. That'd be great. 400 promos and some stuff to get her done. Yep. So get her done. So huge thanks to CCG Prime for doing that. It's a cool new thing. And we will be later this week. We are going to have a Wanderer feature match featuring our very own Paul Reisman with a green utility Imul, a community requested ruler. So Imul coming in. And yes, Mike, we are using the Fei Li.
Did I hear green Imul?
Yes, Mike, we are using the Fei Li clone combo. You're welcome. Because it's the best.
I don't like that one as much.
You were the one who showed me that list. You were the one who showed me that list back in the day.
I played the Jupiter combo. Jupiter's a house.
Jupiter is a house. But
Jupiter is a fucking
thought he was a man.
So we're going to have those, and then next week we will be back with more spoilers, as well as next week we will have another tutoring sessions feature match on Wednesday, which is a full game where we go over for about an hour, a full match, where we talk through all the plays as we're playing the game, so it really gets to break down into the nitty-gritty of the matchup to help you learn. And that's brought to you by one of our patron or one of our members, Diva Dan, and if you want to have those kinds of games with us, if you want the opportunity to have coaching sessions with us, you can consider joining at the higher tier levels here as a membership, because you get that access to that as part of your perks, as well as deck doctoring and all kinds of other cool stuff like merchandise and everything else. So again, Odyssey Games right now has pre-orders up for pre-release kits of the new set. Go check them out. CCG Prime has your stuff for the starters, for starting up a new locals, and we'll catch you here later this week. So until next time, this has been myself, DM073, and I've been joined, as always, by Paul Reisman. Shuffling cards like a maniac. Mike Rants. And until next time, class dismissed. Have a good night, everybody.